Hey guys, what's going on? I'm going to try to make this video quick. It's not going to be very detailed, not a whole lot of stuff going to go on in there, so I'm just going to really kind of explain what's going on, where I'm at, because I haven't really uploaded recently. Just, life, and I'm waiting on parts and stuff. Stuff is coming in pretty slow. But before I get to that, I probably want to go ahead and mention this, because, you guys probably noticed this sweet hoodie here. You're probably wondering where you can get yourself one just like it. No, I don't have my own merch. If I did, that'd be a pretty good segue. But there is a website called The Projects Automotive where I got this from. Talked to the owner, really cool guy. The idea behind The Projects Automotive is to showcase basically I don't want to say regular vehicles, but the vehicles that we grew up in, the vehicles that we grew up working on, the stuff from, I don't want to say our generation, but the stuff from the 90s, the Escort GT, the old school DC Integra, the Geo Tracker, just the weird stuff that for some reason we have a sweet spot for, is the stuff he's going for, rather than your typical Civics and your Supras and your Skylines and all the stuff that everyone already makes stuff for. But anyways, yeah, it's more so just I don't want to say regular cars, because it's not really regular cars, but just, the stuff we have a soft spot for. So check out their website. It's The Projects Automotive. That's their Instagram. I'll put a link in the description, because that's a lot easier than trying to explain the spelling and everything. But yeah, be sure to check them out. And so this design isn't always going to be available. I think what he said was that they focused on 10 designs, 10 vehicles each month. So at the end of each month, this stuff will go away, and then there will be a new set of vehicles that will be available for purchase, as far as shirts and stickers and stuff like that. Also makes stickers, and then his brand there, The Projects Automotive. So yeah, be sure to check them out. I'll put a link in their description, or put a link in the description, so you can get yourself some sweet stuff like this. And like I said, this design will be gone at the end of this month, so we're already halfway through this month, so hurry up and check out their site for some other stuff, because you may not be a Ford Escort GT enthusiast. You may have some other oddball obsession, so check them out. All right, so on to the rest of the video. So the short block. Short block is basically assembled. Everything rotating assembly wise is there. So everything important is there. There is some minor things missing, like the head, but that wouldn't be the short block now, would it? So as of filming this video, I haven't bothered to edit the video of me assembling the front end, and I'm not even sure if I'm going to do that, because it's just kind of boring. There's not, I'm sure you guys enjoy the super chill time-lapse type stuff, but it's whatever. I could do without them. So just to kind of catch you guys up, I think the last video I did was just putting the rods and pistons in. Since then, I have put the oil pump on. I have put the water pump back on. I put the timing gear. Put the timing gear along with the front pulley back on. I've swapped out the stock dampener, which is sitting over there in that pile of trash, for a fluid damper. I guess it'd be damper, huh? Yeah, so fluid damper. I've also added a 36.2 timing ring onto the damper, because I'll be switching from using the CAS. If you guys are familiar with these Mazda vehicles, and I don't know why that thermostat gasket's on there. If you guys are familiar with these guys, they were super popular in the 90s. 4G63 had them. I don't know if Honda really ever used them. I think they use a different type of crank sensor. But anyways, on the Mazda vehicles, this is either a distributor or, well, it functions as both the distributor when you're using it to fire a coil, but it also works as the crank angle sensor. So inside of this guy, yeah, I could pull it apart and show you guys. Yeah, let's do that. That'd be fun. That'll stretch this video out a little bit. Is that not recording the entire time? So anyways, sweet shirt, right? So anyway, so this is a crank angle sensor, or CAS as they call it. These were used a lot in the 90s on a lot of 90s vehicles. It was very good for the time, but things are better now. So like I said, this would normally be, like I said, the crank angle and cam angle sensor, and it also worked as the distributor on the front-wheel drive Mazda BPs. The Miata did not have a distributor. They use a wasted spark coil system, yada yada yada. I digress. So anyways, the way this guy works, you got this wheel in here. It's got 4 prongs. I believe they're all the same size. It's not like a weird spacing or anything, but yeah, they are all the same. Actually, that one looks a little thinner. Anyways, you got this wheel, 4 pins. And then you have this inner wheel, which really isn't really inner wheel, but you'll see this inner blade that's in there. The outer is the crank, I believe, and the inner is the cam. And let me check before I make myself look like a jack. Alright, so we got the 2 discs. Like I said, the outer disc is crank, technically engine speed, or speed sensor, RPM, engine speed, technically crank speed would be the thing. The middle tooth would be the cam sensor. Technically, this is the tooth that will tell the engine when to fire spark, and I guess technically when to fire injectors. It's kind of like the top dead center indicator. It knows when number 1. This would basically indicate when number 1 is at top dead center. Kind of a simplified thing. It technically, let's not get too detailed. Anyway, so with this system, with only 4 teeth for RPM and then that single tooth for cam, well, we'll still use the single tooth for cam. But the advantage of going from something like this with just 4 teeth. Oh, I didn't finish explaining this. So anyways, yeah. So yeah, you got your 4 teeth and your single tooth, and then you have a sensor here and a sensor here that you can kind of barely see in there. So these 2 sensors, one sensor is the outer ring, the other sensor is for the inner ring. And so as these teeth pass that sensor, it sends a square wave, signal to the ECU for RPM, and then as this center one goes in, it sends a single spike every so many revolutions. So then that's how basically the engine knows that it's done a full revolution. It'll so basically, as this passes, you'll get, all right, that was top dead center, and then it will count how many RPM, blah blah blah, how many revolutions the crank has made, and say, all right, well now we're on top dead center of cylinder number 2 and 3, and then fire, and then so on and so forth. So there's basically a lot of estimating that goes on. I mean, that's the way all cars work, regardless of how many teeth there are, but it basically estimates the position of the crank and stuff like that based on some signals it gets before top dead center actually gets to top dead center. But so anyways, there's not a whole lot of resolution in something like this versus a trigger wheel like this. So this basically works exactly the same way as this does, using a Hall effect sensor. In fact, it is right here. So this is the new Hall effect sensor, magnetic sensor. And so this will sit about right there, bolt in, and then you align that so that it's within X amount of inches, not half of inches, but fractions of an inch. And so basically what this sensor will do is it will pick up these teeth here as a pulse, and it will send a pulse to the ECM. And so over on this side, there's 2 missing teeth here. So this will basically act as a top dead center signal for the ECM. So it will count. It will know that every 36 rotations, every 36 pulses, it should see a blank spot of 2 spaces, and then that will tell the ECM that, hey, that's top dead center. Technically, the way this works is, I don't know if you're astute or not, but you notice that right now this is at top dead center, and this is all the way over here. So kind of how I mentioned earlier, how ECMs really estimate the position of the crank. What it does is this tooth will pass X amount of degrees before top dead center. you tell the ECM that this trigger is, let's say, what is that, about 45 degrees? You tell the ECM that this trigger is 45 degrees away from top dead center. So when this passes, this signal, the ECM goes, oh, we're 45 degrees away from top dead center. Count, 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 count. And then so that way it knows that to fire the spark plug or fire the injectors at the exact right moment. Because if this lined up with top dead center, it would be too late. You know, if it got the signal right when the piston was at top dead center, there'd be no time to fire the spark plug. You'd be too late. The engine would have rotated beyond top dead center, and you'd be firing a insanely retarded signal. So this way, you get kind of a pre-warning that top dead center is coming up. It knows the number of teeth, or it knows the number of degrees, and then fires the spark plug. So the problem with this is if you only got 4 teeth, right, you don't have a whole lot of resolution to count those degrees. You just kind of know that, all right, well, it's coming. You know, it should be. You still do the same thing where you say that the signal is X amount of degrees from top dead center, but if you only have 4 teeth, there's a whole lot of dead space in between there. There's a whole lot of guessing that the ECU kind of has to do between those spaces. Wide open throttle, high RPM, not as much of an issue, but low RPM, well, even high RPM. But anyways, you'll notice it more at low RPM, idle speed, and idle and low speed cruising and stuff like that will become a lot smoother when you have a lot more resolution, because the ECU is doing a lot less guessing. You know, you figure at idle, the engine's bouncing around in speed. It's not really quite, if the engine speed is modulating like a lot, you got a lot of lope and stuff like that, the guesstimation that the ECU is doing is a lot less accurate. You got a lot of bouncing around. The ECU is saying, all right, that crank trigger we're gonna hit top dead center in 30 milliseconds, but it actually happens in 20 milliseconds, and so spark timing, all that stuff may be a little off. That's why if you look at a timing light with the engine running, you'll see that timing light bounce around. You won't see these marks, usually won't be rock solid, especially on this system. At idle, you'll see these marks are usually kind of jittery. I mean, they're fairly stable, but they're pretty jittery, and they get more solid as RPM goes up. But at low RPM, they're really all over the place. So with more resolution on the crank, at idle, the ECU should be able to estimate a lot more accurately, and it should be rock solid. It should be stable. So, like I said, high RPM, I don't want to say it doesn't matter. You won't notice it as much at high RPM, but I'm sure it has to matter, to some degree. So anyways, yeah, I felt like, I didn't feel like, actually I was told by Carlos at Magma Tuning, pretty good take his advice. He knows what he's talking about. He was saying that, since I'm doing this, and especially since I'm putting this pulley on, hey, you might as well go ahead and upgrade to a better ignition system. So we'll have this for the crank, and we'll still have the one single tooth for the cam. That's not as important. That's just the cam you only really need for startup, and then after the engine starts, the ECU really kind of ignores the cam signal. It's not necessary. Because, like I said, all the estimation, everything can be done purely from the signal. So, other things, after I've babbled on about that, transmission is still in pieces on my garage floor. I'm going to probably put that together tomorrow. Tomorrow is irrelevant to you guys because who knows when I'll actually upload this. Basically, all I need to do is just kind of clean that. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this guy up, make sure nothing gets in there grody and nasty, and then I can go ahead and flush this out, clean it all out, and swap out that ring there, that ring onto the diff, and throw this guy back together, and have that done. So at least it's one less thing to worry about. Got some pulleys here. I mean, it's boring stuff, but it's important stuff. So since I swapped pulleys, the old pulley was a V-drive pulley. Fucking squeaked all the time, always came loose. The new pulley is obviously a ribbed design. So in order to make that work, I had to get a alternator pulley that is ribbed, as well as a water pump pulley that is ribbed. So got to repaint it because I scratched it after painting it. But anyways, gotta get those guys on there. Not a big deal. Small stuff. Itty bitty small stuff. Like I said, I gotta mount this guy. Figure out exactly how I want to go about it. I don't want to go that way. That wouldn't work. So yeah, gotta get this guy mounted up. Figure out how I want to route the wiring. Because easy thing to do would be to mount something to the chassis that this plugs into so it's out of the way, but I really don't like that idea. I'd like this to be tucked in with the engine, so what I might do is drill some holes in this cover here and run some zip ties so that this wire can be zip tied across there, and I can run this across the back of the engine so that everything can be hidden. Speaking of wiring harnesses, I'm going to be redoing this harness because it has been through, I don't know, 5 or 6 different iterations. The inside harness has been redone already. This is the engine harness. And so the problem with this is you can see how there's a bunch of stuff that's looped back on itself, and it's very unnecessary the way it's put together. You know, it's like I said, it's all coiled up, it's looped back. It's because it's been changed like 6 times since I put the car together like 4 years ago. And this is still mostly the OEM, 25-year-old harness. So a lot of these connectors are really old connectors that have seen better days. Especially these injector connectors. Half of them are missing the clips that hold them onto the injector, and I should have stopped running the car at that point. Yeah, so 2 of them are missing the clips that hold the plug onto the injector. It's a big deal. It's actually happened to me once going down the track. One of the plugs popped off the injector. The car fell flat on its face. Luckily, I got out of it immediately. But that could be a bad thing. If you're wide open throttle, you lose an injector, you can melt a piston real fast. And that would be a really stupid reason to lose an engine. So I'm completely rebuilding that harness. Went ahead, I ordered a bunch of connectors. So we've got this is stuff for, what are these guys? I don't remember what these are. I made a list. So these are fuel injectors. This is the CAS, or crank angle sensor. This is the, there should be 2 of these. Actually, what is this one for? This is for the, what do you call it? The thingamajig. TPS. So that's TPS. This is crank angle sensor, injectors. This is for the engine coolant temperature sensor. These guys I won't be using because they're the wrong size. I bought them for something else. These guys are, this will be for the, these are actually used for a couple of things. So one of them is the idle valve, but there's a few other things they could be used for. I don't know why I bought so many, honestly. I don't know why I bought 4 of these when I only need 2. Maybe there's another reason. Maybe there's another one. Can't remember. I think it's just the idle valve. Then there's a few connectors I'm going to replace on the harness, so I can connect and disconnect. So these are just some 4-pole connectors and some 2-pole connectors to, some nice stuff. These aren't all the connectors on the harness because I'm going to reuse some of these. Like the connector for the ignition coils, that will be transferred over because it's its own harness for the most part, so that will just be transferred straight over. The connector for, there was something else I was going to reuse. believe it was this guy. Can't remember what it is though. Oh, those are for the coils. So that whole harness will be reused. This is the, I believe this is, that is the flex fuel sensor that may or may not be reconnected. But anyways, that'll be reused. That's really it. Then we got an oil pressure sensor. That will be reused. But yeah, I mean, you can see how it's kind of crazy that there's really not that many connections. There's maybe like 16 connections, you know. I mean, I'm using there. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. So 25 total wires. All right. You know, this should be total thickness of the harness, right? It should be pretty thin, but we got all this girth back there. So we'll be cleaning that up. I will probably film the building of the harness. Just, I don't know, people find that stuff interesting. The chassis needs a little bit of help. It's not too bad. It's not too horrible. I mean, I could very easily just throw the engine back in there the way it is, but since the engine's out, there's some stuff I'd like to repaint. I'm going to pull everything off the firewall, you know, clean it up, repaint it, reroute some stuff, you know, like get rid of some of these rubber hoses and replace it with the stuff, you know, the push lock stuff, because it's fucking amazing. Yeah, I just want to clean some stuff up. You know, sand all this stuff flat and repaint it so that it's actually nice looking. I mean, it's not going to be a show car. It was never intended to be a show car, but it should look nice, you know. Especially when you see the old timers there with their race cars and they're freaking pristine. They were beautiful. And us import guys show up in our shit boxes falling apart, you know, so gotta rip, gotta make it look nice. Yeah, I think that's like basically it. There's not really a whole lot to talk about. Like I said, I just wanted to kind of wanted to update you guys on what's going on and what the plans are. I guess one thing I did forget about, the head is still out. Probably about another week before the head gets in. Haven't really had a lot of updates about it. I'm assuming potential waiting on parts since they are putting the head together for me. So maybe waiting on shims, or maybe it needed new guides. I don't know. Maybe they're just really backed up. I got no clue, but I was told from the get-go it would probably be... about 3 weeks before I got the head back, so not too surprised. So, but anyways, that's pretty much it for right now. I'm gonna clean my garage up since it is a freaking disaster. I have been very bad about keeping things nice and tidy, especially with an open engine here, but you know, shit'll buff. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got for right now. I just kind of want, because I haven't uploaded a video, and I don't plan on doing anything major enough to make another video, and I didn't want the next video to be like a month from now, and you guys are just like, what's going on? So, so yeah, that's pretty much it for now. Like I said, next video will probably be me rebuilding this harness. Still waiting on some components to come in, but that seems like the, I don't know, tedious thing to kind of just get out of the way before I'm really trying to draw out waiting on the head to get back, because ideally what I'd like to do is put the engine completely back together, get the transmission back onto the engine, and then kind of sit that on the ground and have it ready to go, and then I can work on the chassis and getting that cleaned up and all that. So while I'm waiting on the head, I'm going to work on the harness. So enough babbling. Should be it for now. Till next time.